they always say like 80% of your success is going to be the prep work. You have to take risks in life to get somewhere. A lot of people tend to assume that the home you live in is an investment, and it's not, because it doesn't pay you anything. This is what I'm saying, investing is a lifestyle. It's not something you do because it's trendy. Like, that's not how wealth is built.
I'm your host, Mina Simone, and you are now locked into the Quitters Never Win show.
And I am with Monique. Hi, Monique.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Can we start with what you do and how old are you?
So I do finance content. I also have a background in asset management, and I'm 24 years old.
Amazing. And what is your content about finance management?
So mainly I create content sort of around like, it's geared towards sort of Gen Z, millennials, kind of like jargon-free finance content. So a lot of the time, sort of like previously, I think a lot of people are sort of like swayed from like these types of conversations because of the things and the wording and, you know, like all the technicality of things. So I try and make things as simple as possible and just create content and
And what is this content called?
When you say what it's called,
Like,
what do you mean?
what is your platform?
So I create content on TikTok. I am trying to transition more over to like Instagram and other fields as well. But at the moment we're mainly on TikTok, but we are trying to create a couple of events as well. I'm thinking about doing a couple of things in the future. So yeah, just stay tuned for that.
Amazing. So where are you from, what area, and what was your upbringing like?
So I've grown up in Tottenham. I've grown up in Tottenham all my life. My upbringing was good. So I grew up in a 2-parent family home. It was cool. I also have 2 brothers, so that was good. But in terms of like my background relating back to finance, I don't have any background. So I'm self-taught. Everything I know is obviously just through my own due diligence. And yeah, that's been my background so far.
So with your parents at home, did they ever speak to you about money? Like, what was conversations around money like in the house?
They never spoke to me about money. Money's always been like a bit of a taboo. We didn't really get into like how much things, you know, the nitty gritty stuff. No, that wasn't really something that was spoken about. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. But what I have realized is that I'm very open about money and like conversations about that, and it's kind of like had a good effect on them because now they're more open to like learning and talking about stuff and things that maybe they've done that they can let me know about, whereas before, because we never had those conversations, it was like I had to learn everything myself. So yeah.
And now they're listening to you.
They are listening to me. They're still obviously stuck in their old ways as well. But that's the whole point of like trying to break generational curses. My whole thing is not to try and convince somebody that I'm right or convince somebody to agree with me, because that's why it's personal finance. Like, no 2 people are going to be the same. Like, it all is dependent on you, your situation, your background. So I never make like general statements that will work for everybody. What I do is kind of like give you a blueprint and you apply that blueprint to your situation. So I always say to people, like, they're like, for example, they might say something like, how can I save X amount of money? That is all dependent on your outgoings, your income. Do you have dependents? You know, all of that factors into how much you can save. I'm just using that as an example, but yeah, I just kind of give people the blueprint and then you apply it and put your own numbers in and see what you can do with it.
Which makes sense, because I feel like you see online so many people saying this will work for you, and it's like, you don't know me.
Yeah, exactly.
So what actually got you into finance in the first place?
So initially I started trading, right? And I started trading. I've done a story time about this. I also have a interview with Bloomberg about this. I started trading. That didn't go well at all. But 99% of traders are unsuccessful anyway. So if I had known that, 99. So a lot of people don't know that. But anyway, I went into trading thinking, okay, it looks easy enough. I can just follow these signals and go ahead with it. Ended up losing like a whole bunch of money. And so that kind of gave me the motivation to look for other avenues. Like, I didn't want to quit there. I knew there was other ways. It's just probably not that. So then I heard about like people investing, and I came across, I remember it was Graham Stephan. He's a guy on YouTube. He's based in America. But I love his content, and I came across his content about the S&P 500. So I always bang on about this index fund.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know what an index fund is, it's basically like a collection of stocks in one basket. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, he talks about index funds a lot, right? So it's like a very simple, hands-off approach to passive investing. So yeah, I was watching him and then kind of like got into it through that. And a lot of my content has been around like easy, or not easy, but more hands-off approach to investing.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the index fund?
Yeah, so I've done a couple videos on this before, and I always use the analogy of like a shopping basket. So imagine you go to like Tesco's, right? And there's so many different things in Tesco's. You can buy hair products, you can buy food, you can buy whatever. You can buy so many different things in Tesco's. So think of it like when you choose a stock, there's all these different stocks. There's Tesla, there's Amazon, there's Microsoft, Google, the list goes on. There's so many different stocks, right? And it would be very unrealistic to try and do research on a whole bunch of stocks. So let me use the S&P 500. That's one of my favorite index funds. That's basically a basket of 500 of the US top 500 traded companies. Yeah. So like, it's like Tesla, Amazon, Google, etc.
Is Apple in there?
Apple's in there.
Okay.
So all the big companies you can think of in the US, it's all in this one basket, right? So instead of having to do research on like how's Tesla doing, how's Amazon doing, how's Google doing, you basically have all of these, you basically own fractional shares. So what a fractional share is, like a percentage of it's not a whole stock, it's a percentage of a stock. And these fractions are in one basket. The more you buy, the more you own. So over time you will acquire 1 share, 2 share, 3 shares, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I talk about index funds a lot on my page.
And you also wrote a book as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
So what was the process like for that as well?
Extensive. It was extensive. It was very, I would say, I probably procrastinated with it more than I should have, but I have a tendency of doing that anyway because I'm such like an overthinker or like a perfectionist, or like I get in my own head about like who's gonna want to buy this because it's me. But yeah, I ended up writing a book. I did really well on that book, actually. A lot of people were interested sort of in like one-to-one. So I'm thinking about sort of like going into that as well.
Nice.
But yeah, it was cool.
Sick.
Cool.
So what challenges and kind of setbacks did you have
Whilst writing the book?
in the process? Yeah.
I'll say the challenges I faced was probably trying to, because when you're reading a book, right, it's like you're trying to translate something that's very technical, very complex, very in-depth into something that's very simple and easy to understand. And obviously everybody learns differently. Some people are more like hands-on, some people are kinesthetic learners, which I am as well. I prefer to see something hands-on and then sort of like go and do it, and I'll learn that way. But some people prefer reading a book. So I think the biggest challenge for me was like the wording I chose in the book, the chapters I chose, because obviously I don't want the book to be too long to the point where people start getting bored of it. So I was very specific with the chapters I chose, but a lot of my focus was on people doing, because 80% of the work is the prep. So I always say this, like you can't go into something and just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna read this book and then go straight into it.
Yeah.
It's not enough. Like you've got to do more research because the financial market is constantly changing. So you've got to keep up with the times. So you got to watch the news, read books, keep yourself up to date with what's going on in the current market. So I kind of did that approach and made something that would sort of fit, well, I won't say everybody, but it would fit most people that are probably going to read that, which, like I said, is Gen Z and millennials. So yeah, that was probably one of the main challenges.
One of the main?
Yeah.
What would you say I don't want to say side challenges, but what would you say like the least important challenges, or the ones that least?
Once you do the hard work speaks for itself. So I would say like, I don't know, the book was not to brag, but the book was good, so it did what it did.
It did well.
Yeah.
Would you say it did the numbers you thought, or did it exceed?
It actually exceeded what I thought.
Okay.
Yeah, it exceeded what I thought. And for my first drop, I was very impressed as well. So it's definitely given me the push to be like, okay, I can definitely branch off and do other things now. And like, this is just the beginning. I'd love to write another book, or, you know, like I said, go into one-to-ones or sort of like mentorship, that sort of stuff. So it's something I'm planning and I hope to release soon.
Amazing. So what type of investments have you invested in?
I can give you a few.
Okay.
To go through all of them might be a bit. We might be for a bit. So at the moment, I got 90% of my investments is probably in stocks and shares. So through index funds, mutual funds, ETFs, individual stocks, REITs, which is real estate investment trusts. They're also good. They pay you 90% in dividends. So you get that sort of like every quarter, I believe. So yeah, you get dividends. And if you don't know what a dividend is, it's basically when a company pays you, so it could be monthly or quarterly, it's when a company pays you for owning their stock. So for example, Johnson & Johnson paid dividends. There's a whole bunch of companies that pay dividends. I actually can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, REITs are good for that.
And how's that spelled? Just so we know.
Capital letters REIT and then lowercase s.
Okay.
But a REIT is not a name of a stock. A REIT stands for real estate investment trust. So basically, when you invest in a REIT, you're investing in real estate. It could be commercial property and it could be residential. So through REITs, I only deal with commercial property. So like you'll have big warehouse, like, you know, like Amazon warehouses, FedEx warehouses, stuff like that. So they pay rent to companies, and when you buy that REIT, you then get a dividend. So the company pays you because you've invested in them, and their way of sort of giving back is through paying you every month. So your dividends accumulate over time. The more you invest, the more shares you build, the more dividends you'll receive.
But where do you actually go to invest? Like, because can I just go online and just invest? How does it work? You
can go online, yeah. So there's different platforms. I don't really make recommendations on platforms because I'm not associated with any platform, and I don't, again, it all depends on your situation. So different platforms are suitable for sort of like different people. It depends. Beginners, I always say, like, I would stick to like the simple, there's not really much option on there, but it's simple and it's easy, and I like that. So I like Moneybox. It's like I said, it's simple and it's easy. You have other like more complex ones, especially when you start getting into things like crypto. I don't speak about crypto on my platform as much because most of my viewers are beginners. So I'm very aware of who my audience is and the type of content and the influence that I have on them. So I'm very specific with what I decide to put out. I do invest in crypto. But because I know the risk associated, it's not something that I would recommend for people that are new to this. I feel like you need to be a bit seasoned in it in terms of like investing before you go into crypto. And that's because crypto is decentralized. Decentralization means like separate from the government. So it's not regulated by the FCA. Your money's not protected. And if say, for example, Coinbase goes bust and you've got money in Coinbase, then your money's gone. Just touching on that, I don't recommend leaving money on like a platform like Coinbase. I always say get ledgers.
I lost mine.
You lost your what?
Coinbase.
Money?
Yeah.
You didn't have a ledger?
I don't know what happened. I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, now they've become more strict with it, so you do have to like fill out a questionnaire, I think, in order to be able to trade on there. So I think they are sort of becoming a bit more aware with like the influence that crypto has on Gen Z, because I think people perceive crypto like a get rich quick scheme, and there's no such thing. I always say, like, if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you might make money in the beginning, but you have to think, I always think like long term. I'm always like how realistic is this? How, you know what I mean? So it's like, if something's fast and it's quick, it's probably not gonna last. So if you're making quick money fast, it's like, it's cool while it's good, but how sustainable is it? Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
So for those who are starting out, what investments would you tell them to make?
Index funds, 100%.
Yeah?
Index funds. 100, you do need to do research, but you don't need to do any sort of extensive research. The index funds, a lot of them are actually managed by experts. So people that are like, you see people on Wall Street and stuff, a lot of those people manage these index funds. So you can trust that at least, there's an expert there managing the fund. Say if a stock is not performing as well as it should be, it gets removed out of the index fund. So you don't need to do anything in terms of like having to remove or make adjustments to your portfolio.
Nice.
So that's what I like about index funds.
It sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So what is the worst and the best investment that you've made?
The worst, probably. But then, you know what? I can't say it's the worst because it taught me what I needed to learn in order to get here. But if I have to answer the question, the worst investment would probably be... See, I wouldn't say it was an investment. I'd say the approach would be trading. It wasn't for me. Not to say it's not for everybody though, because trading works for some people and not others. But like I said, 99% of traders aren't successful. So if you do the maths and you do the numbers, then yeah. But yeah, probably. So trade, but it taught me what I needed to know. Like it definitely gave me that push, and I needed. It's like I feel like you have to take losses. Like every L you take, it's a lesson learned. So I don't really see it as like, oh, this is the worst investment I've ever made. I kind of see it like this paved the way, because I had to lose out on money in order to kind of like be like, no, I'm not okay with this. Like I couldn't afford to lose out on that money, so I had to get it back. So yeah, I'll say that. And then the best investment, it depends again, because I like different investments for different things. Like, are we talking about, because when we say investments, it's very generic. Like, are we talking about real estate? Are we talking about stocks? Are we talking about
any investment that you've made?
Real estate.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, I'm into property anyway, so I have a huge interest in property. But the reason I like real estate is because it's something you can pass down. With stocks, right? Obviously, you can hold a stock for as long as you want, but that stock, ultimately, in order to get the money from it, you have to sell it. I like real estate because there's so many things you can do. You can rent out properties, you can do HMOs. Like, there's so many different approaches to investing in real estate, and I feel like it's tangible. So you can see it, feel it, touch it, smell it. Do you know what I mean? So when you can see something and you can see, right, like my money's gone into this, like I've got this, and it feels good to own something. So when you can see it, it's a better feeling, I feel like, and it feels like, yeah, I've actually accomplished something because you can see it.
Yeah. Okay, so how important is strategizing and planning for you then?
Yeah, like I said, it's probably 80% of your... I think, yeah, they always say like 80% of your success is going to be the prep work. So you can't really take any shortcuts when it comes, because it shows in the end result. If you don't do the prep, it shows. Like, if you don't, say you've got like something coming up and you need to revise for it, an exam coming up, and you don't revise for it, right? You it's a bit unrealistic to go into that exam thinking you're going to pass with flying colours, unless you're just naturally good at the subject.
Gifted.
Right. But if you haven't revised for this subject and you don't pass, it's like, well, you didn't do the prep work, so you can't really be angry at yourself, you know?
So what's your thoughts on people who leave money in the bank?
No thoughts on them.
Okay.
But it's not something I would recommend. Again, very situational. I get why people, like, I think cash is good. Like, you need cash. Everybody needs cash because they say cash is king. Not that, I don't think I agree with that, but some people do. But the thing about leaving your money in the bank is that there's no growth potential there. So at the moment, like, the highest interest rate you might get in like a sort of like high yield savings account, and that's like normally your money has to be like locked away for maybe like a year or so, you might get 5% on a good day, right? And inflation, like, when we had just come out of the pandemic, was sitting at 8. So if you're only getting 5% on an investment but inflation's at 8%, then you're losing out.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you're losing out on, and your pound is decreasing in power. So every year, right? Inflation obviously is a thing. So the amount of buying power that you have with money is not the same if it's just sitting in the bank, because it's not doing anything. And then when I say to people, right, why do you think and how do you think banks are able to pay you this interest? Like, money doesn't just fall out of the sky. Like, there's a way and a strategy that there must be something they're doing with your money to be able to pay you
the interest.
Exactly. So cut the middleman out. Do you know what I mean? And like, do it yourself. It doesn't. I feel like now we have access to the internet, and like there's so much available online for free as well. Like, it's at everybody's fingertips. It just takes a little bit of time to do that research. But what the bank do with your money is the same thing you could do. When your money's sitting in the bank, say you've got £100 in the bank, right? That £100 doesn't stay in the bank. You can see it, it's online, and it will tell you have £100, but that £100 being invested into other things. So they might get, like, say they get 10% on, you put £100 in the bank takes your £100, they'll invest your £100 into something that might give them like 10% return. They'll say to you, oh, do you know what? We'll pay you 2% interest. They'll pocket the other 8. Why not cut that middleman out and just get 10% on the return? It's your money, you know? But I think it's that whole thing of like safety, people being fearful of taking risks, but you have to take risks in life to get somewhere, you know?
Yeah. So what is something you wish you knew earlier?
Ooh, something I wish I knew earlier in terms of finance.
Yeah.
Something I wish I knew earlier.
Because taking all these risks, you must have wished that there was something that you were like.
There definitely is something I wish I knew earlier. See, I would say every investment comes with risk. I think you might have to come back to me on that question. I need to think about it.
Should I come back to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question for you then is, what old habits did you have to break when learning everything that you know now, being now the new financially intelligent person that you are?
Consumerism, definitely consumerism. Okay. When I say consumerism as well, like, I am not that. There's some people that take finance to an extreme. So it's called like FIRE community, and that's like financially independent, retired early. So it's people that basically try and retire as early as possible. They have like very stringent ways of living, and again, no judgment here, but I just don't see that being realistic for me. So I think everything has to come within proportion. I always try and save at least 80% of my income. So I'm spending like 20, saving 80. Say if it's a thing where like I want to do more, then I need to think of a way to make more money. Otherwise, I can't afford to do it. So there's certain things like holidays you might have to miss out on, or nights out. But then you realize, like, once you get a little bit older, you realize that like this stuff isn't going anywhere. Like, it's always going to be there. And I would much rather work hard now so that I can chill out later.
Yeah.
Rather than having all the fun now and then being like my 40s, 50s thinking I have nothing to show.
And you're stressing. You're still working till the retirement
You're not
age.
as fit, you're not as healthy, you know. It's just, I would rather do it now. But again, it's like, I think everything is down to preference. I don't try and convince people that that is the way of life, because everybody's life is going to be different. People have different callings. Some people, for them, investing is not important, which is fine, and I like hear it. I get that. But for me personally, I always try and like do the work now so I can just chill out later. Like, I know what type of lifestyle I want to live. I know what kind of curses I want to break. I know what it feels like to have money, and I know what it feels like to not have money. And I'm telling you from now, they both have problems, but I'd rather have problems with money.
I have an actual question on off the back of that.
Yeah.
Now, I ask a lot of people this question. What do you think is the lowest amount of money you would ever let your money get to?
Oh, now we're dropping numbers.
I asked, the reason I say that is because I asked 10 people the other day, and it was so different.
With where I am at in life now, currently. So you're basically asking me what number would I feel broke?
Yeah, like as soon as it hits
that, it's
boom,
like
this number And it's like, no, I'm not leaving my house until I make another pound, another penny.
The lowest would
Yeah.
be like 80, 85
K or pounds?
K.
Okay. No, I'm just saying.
Not to, yeah.
No,
K,
because
sorry,
someone
yeah.
said to me
We're
the other
talking-
day £100, and I was like,
Which-
£100?
But again, it all depends because it's like everybody has different priorities. But I feel like anything below that, I might be like, okay, now we need to do something about
need to
this.
work.
Yeah, we need to work.
So what got you to that point though, where it's like 85K, and that's because you had to have built yourself up.
Definitely. So I did a story time about how I left school with 50K. So I actually was working from the time I was 16, right? Did a whole story time about it. But long story short, I had a job at 16. I was working in Sainsbury's. I also was at uni. So at uni, you get student loan.
Yeah.
Right? I went to university in Birmingham. I ended up dropping out, but besides the point. I went to university in Birmingham and I was staying at home because my mum and dad are originally from Birmingham. So I got the best of both worlds, growing up here, growing up there, a little bit of both. I decided to stay at home and I was getting all this student finance and I was getting, I was working part-time as well. So I was saving all my student finance. I was saving all the money I was getting from work. And luckily, I was able to live at home rent-free. Like,
Love it.
It is a privilege. And I always say to people, like, if you can afford to let your children live at home for free, do it. Because it can literally
Sets them up.
be the difference between them, you know, being able to break certain curses and, you know, not have to go through certain struggles. And I think it's important to try and put your children in the best position possible so that they don't have to go through certain things you did. So anyway, I've always been working from the age of 16, but didn't really know what to do with my money. So my money wasn't necessarily growing, but it was stacking up because I was saving a lot. But then when I started seeing, okay, like I'm getting like 10K, like let me tell you about a story when I made my first 10K, right? Because I remember that story so well. Basically, this came through like just 9 to 5 work, hard work though, but it was, I had 10K, I saved up my first 10K, I believe I was like 17, I could have been pushing 18 at the time. But yeah, so it was through saving, working, and at the time I was only working a weekend job, so it wasn't like full time or anything. It was just a weekend job. I think at the time I was earning about £300 a month. And I kind of knew like, okay, I'm at home. I don't have any commitments, no priorities. My mum's not making me pay rent. Like I'm very thankful for that as well. Cause like I said, it literally has been the reason why I've been able to like be so, I feel like for my age, it's set me up a lot. So even though it's like my parents couldn't help out financially in terms of like giving me money to put me in certain positions, they can do things. So that's why I always say to people, like, even if you can't give, there might be little things that you can do, like maybe stay at home a little bit longer or try and like cut down on things. We spoke about consumerism earlier. I think your question was something you've had to like sacrifice or something like that, and it was consumerism. So I'm a big like sneaker fan. I've always been a big sneaker fan. Like from the minute I literally knew about trainers, I've been into trainers. So I'm huge on trainers. That's one thing, and I think everybody should have their like, because it's boring saving. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, saving's so fun. It is very boring saving. So one thing that is my non-negotiable is that if I want a pair of shoes, I'm gonna buy it. Like,
okay.
But I only collect Jordans. So my whole thing is Jordans. Like I was spending like a lot of money on Jordans, but I wouldn't do other things. So I might like, if my friends are going out certain places, I won't go, or I might take the long route home to save a bit of money. Just little things, right? And you think, oh, like how is this gonna add up? But it does. So I would do small things like, you know, sacrifice one thing for another. And then when I hit my first 10K, so I got 10K now, and I was thinking, what can I do with this money? Because I know it's not a lot, but it felt like a lot at the time. And actually, I think 10K is a lot because
you can still do a lot.
Right,
with 10K.
and exactly. And when you look at the statistics, like there's a huge percentage, especially in the UK and the US and like the Western world, there's a lot of people that don't have enough to cover like a £1,000 emergency. And when we look at it, it's like, you're looking at salaries, you're looking at cost of living and stuff. And it's like, okay, I do get that salaries and cost of living, sometimes they're not quite aligned, but I do feel like a lot of the time it is down to like, maybe people just could manage their money a little bit better, or they'd have to sacrifice certain things, which not everybody is willing to do. But you can definitely set yourself up, even if you're not a high earner, because I wasn't a high earner at all. Like you know what I mean? So at the time I was able to save that 50k, I was earning no more. I think, what was I? So when I went school, when I say school, at the age of 16, I was earning £300 a month. So that might be a couple grand a year. Then I had, at 18, did I go full time? No, I didn't, because I was at uni. So I had my student finance at 18. I was getting 4 grand, saved everything, every last penny of that. And I was there for 3 years. So that was 12k. That was like a free 12k as well. So that was good, because that gave me like an extra push. I was like, yes, didn't have to like work my ass off for this, and I'm at home. So I'm living, like getting cooked food every single day, not having to contribute a penny. So I'm living at home, stacking up my money. And I'm just saying to my mom, like, I got this, I got that. Every milestone, I'm like, yes. I've always known as well that like one day, I want to, like I said, I'm very interested in real estate, very interested in property. So I have like this whole thing, like Mr. Beast content. I love his content, like what he does, and like his whole mission and his ethos and the things he stands for. I think it's so inspirational. And if there were more people like that in the world, we could defeat things like poverty and, you know, hunger, things that are very simple and we can afford to do. But just obviously with the circulation of money, it is a little bit difficult. But I love his approach. Mr. Beast is, I feel like Mr. Beast is low-key me as well, because he's like so witty and so like clever, and he's got an interest actually in personal finance, which I love. So yeah, I would do like more stuff like that. But the first 10k was definitely game-changing. It opened a lot of doors.
What did you do with your first 10k?
I feel like most of it I probably saved in the bank until I learned how to invest, and then I transferred it over into like investments. One of the first investments I opened, I always said, if you want to buy a house,
ISA.
But what kind of ISA?
Lysol, money box.
A lifetime ISA. They don't do help to buy ISAs anymore. I wasn't quite fond of them anyway, but I love lifetime ISAs. Lifetime ISAs basically allow you to contribute £4,000 every tax year. So from April to April, you can max out the account with 4k and you get a 25% bonus. So if you do the maximum, you get £1,000 free from the government plus capital gains. So it's like a win-win. Like, you're not going to get any sort of return like that in the bank, or
it's actually the best app ever.
So I'm a huge advocate for anybody that is thinking about getting into property. And, you know, you have to be between the ages of 18 and 39. So bear that in mind. But it's definitely worth looking into.
So how do you feel about like credit cards?
I love credit cards. Credit cards have literally paved more way for me than debit ever has.
Really?
Definitely.
But so many people run from credit cards. Why shouldn't I?
I think that's because of the stigma around credit. And again, credit cards come with a certain level of responsibility. So you do have to do your due diligence. Like, a credit card is not there to be sort of like misused, but a lot of people do tend to rely on it and misuse it, and that's why they have a bad relationship with credit. But actually, when you build really good credit, you know, you get like a lot of things for free, and I love free things. Like,
can you give me an example of how I can use my credit card wisely?
Okay, so a credit card that I love is American Express. They need to give me a sponsorship, but I love American Express. I think it's like one of the best credit cards going. So I've gone on multiple trips for free just through using a credit card. And this is putting all my normal expenses, by the way, nothing crazy. Putting all my normal expenses on a credit card, and I'll pay it off at the end of the month. And that builds credit, and I get air mileage points, right? So you can exchange those points for like hotels, car hires, flights, different things. That's one example. Another example is lounge access at airports. I feel like we had a conversation a little bit earlier, but if you've got £100 in bank, right, but you've got like 100k in credit, which obviously wouldn't really make sense because, but just for hindsight, if you had 100k in credit and £100 in the bank, and versus somebody who has 100K in the bank but really bad credit, you're going to be in a much better position than that person with, you know, thousands and thousands of pounds more than you. And that's simply because you've proven to the bank that you're a trustworthy and reliable person, and they love that. The more trustworthy you are, the more reliable you are, the more they tend to give you. And the thing is that debt is the best way to build wealth. Like, I am not an advocate, well, again, situational, but for me, I'm not an advocate of like using my own money. I'd much rather invest with debt than use my own money. And the reason that is because when you utilize debt then turns into something that you're paying off this debt, right? And you've got like interest on it, but at least you can build capital, at least you can build like an asset through this debt. And so the more and more you pay off this debt then becomes something that will eventually start paying for you, like your lifestyle and the lifestyle you kind of want to live.
It's mad. So hence like credit score and all of that, like clear score, when you're trying to buy a house or let's say you're getting a car finance, that's even another way that you can build credit.
That is another way you can build credit. I don't know if taking out a car finance would be the smartest way to build credit, if that's what your goal is. There's other ways to build credit that are a lot less costly, but yeah, things like that would be a way to build credit. Or just simply taking out a credit card and say you put like, you've got a limit. Most people might start off with like £1,000 if you've got no credit or had no credit history before. They might give you like £1,000. I always recommend never using more than like 30% utilization. So yeah, if you build credit just by buying things, paying off the credit card, eventually, you know, your credit will increase. You apply for another credit card, they'll accept you, and then it's like you combine, so your credit's combined, and then you get a big number, and it's like you've got all this credit available to you.
Use it for something.
Use it, yeah.
So what tips would you give for someone trying to improve their credit? They don't know where to start. Obviously there's credit cards, but what else could they do?
Sign up for the electoral roll. Is it electoral roll? Don't know if I'm saying that right.
I think it is.
I think so. But yeah, sign up for that. To build your credit, sign up on that. Get a credit card. That's the main thing. Like, get a credit card and use it. Literally, if that's the thing though, when you get a credit card, use it, but don't overuse it. Use, like I said, no more than like 30%, because you don't want to be over leveraged. And when you like, say you got £1,000, right, and you go and spend on a credit card £900, and the bank then looks at your statement at the end of the month and like, hold on, this person has £1,000 limit. They've used £900. They're like paying it back in bits. They clearly need this money, right? You don't want to ever give the impression that you need the money. It's kind of just a thing where it's like, oh, I'm just going to put it on my credit card and pay it off just cause. Like, so if you can like literally build credit through that, pay off in full, like because you don't want to, the whole point of building credit is not to accumulate any debt. So you don't want to have interest on this money. So pay it off in full and do the same thing. And over time, you'll find that like you can apply for better credit cards, and yeah, you'll be a lot more accessible. So
what's your thoughts on stocks and shares?
What stocks though? Because there's so many. Are we talking? And okay, stocks is in like, we're just talking traditional stocks, or are we talking like
traditional stocks?
Crypto. So no.
We can talk about crypto as well. You can tell us your thoughts across the board.
My thoughts, I don't know, because it's a bit too general to give you my thoughts on stocks, because every stock performs differently. But I can like tell you my favorite stock, maybe that might give you. Yeah. My favorite stock at the moment is Apple and Tesla. I'm a huge Tesla fan. So
would you ever get a Tesla?
Yeah, that's my dream car, Model X. So if anybody wants to buy that for me.
Really?
Yeah.
I watched a film about Tesla and it scared me.
They've got that new Cybertruck out. Do you like it?
I don't even know.
Not really. It's an acquired taste. I love it.
I don't know.
It's like it's very like, it's hard to explain. I'll have to show it to you after.
Please show me.
But yeah.
No, I just watched a film of it and it kind of scared me. So I was like, don't know.
He's got a futuristic approach on his like, but Elon again is a great, I don't know him, but he's a great guy. He does, and he's got so much going for himself. He's got, you know, stuff in sort of like robotics, and like he goes to space a lot. So there's, I think it's called SpaceX. Yeah, he does it. So I think he's trying to even create something like life on the moon. So he's trying to move what we know as life on Earth to life on the moon. He's a crazy guy, but that's why he does so well, because he takes risks. So, and I feel like a lot of people aren't willing to take those risks, but he has a great brand and I love his ethos. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorite.
Okay. So obviously you told us you love property. You've got a big interest in it. Where did your interest kind of start from, grow from, and why is it good to get into property?
I don't think it's good for everybody to get into property. Again, everything is situational, and it depends what strategy are we using, and are we, because you can have property for investment purposes, or we talking about like just property you live in, because a lot of people tend to assume that the home you live in is an investment, and it's not, because it doesn't pay you anything. You will build, like, you know, equity in the home and stuff. I guess some people might argue that, well, that is the investment, but if something doesn't provide you like any sort of income or cash flow, then I don't see it as an investment. So the home I live in isn't necessarily an investment, quote unquote, unless I'm like, you know, renting out the spare room or doing something with it. Or there's another strategy where I've seen people, like, they've got a home office, and that home office is used for work. And so the square foot of whatever that office is can be written off against your rent or mortgage or whatever it is you're paying. Yeah. So if you've got an office at home, or you work from home and you've got a business set up, you measure the square meter and you can take that as a deduction.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So what do you feel like the best strategy is to buy in 2024 for like new homeowners? Like, because it's quite difficult.
It is very difficult, especially in London.
Yeah, and also they say that, you know how you said if you're living in it, now there's obviously that rule where you have to live in it for 2 years before you can make it like a buy to let. So what would you do? Because like for 2 years now we're sitting there, we're like,
I would just wait the time out, because it's an investment. So you got to think of, like, again, it's all about the long-term game. So waiting 2 years is nothing. Like, that 2 years is going to fly by. So if it's a thing where like you got to wait like 2 years or so before you can kind of like get any return off of it, then it's probably worth getting on the ladder. The hardest thing about getting on the ladder is getting on. Like, once you're on, it's quite, not going to say it's easy to maneuver, but it's easier to maneuver. So I feel like getting on is the main focus, and then once you've got yourself on, you know, you can borrow against your home and again, all through debt, right? You can borrow against your own home and stuff like that. So there's a lot of avenues where you can sort of like recycle your own money. Yeah.
Okay, and do you have any other interests, any side hustles, or anything that we should know about?
Okay, my interests are, I recently started the gym, so I'm back in the gym, happy about that. Like I said, I collect trainers. I've been doing that for a while. Any interests outside of fan? Do you know what it is? I feel like I'm heavily consumed by what I do, because it's not just like, I always say to people, it's not quite like being a content creator, which is why I don't feel like I am a content creator. Like, even though I create content, but my content is quite different. Like, my content has to be very well thought about. Not to obviously diminish anybody else's.
Yeah, but you have to think about what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Because it's also information that you're giving out, and you can't put out something
exactly. And also you have to make sure that it's easily translatable to everybody. So it kind of feels like work after work almost, because I kind of work in a similar field. So yeah, it's fun though. I'm not complaining. I love it, and honestly, I didn't even start it thinking that it would be anything. I just started it because it's what I do, it's what I love, and I'd get questions about it. So rather than like repeat myself, it's just like,
online.
Yeah, just go watch my video, and here we are.
Do you still work the 9 to 5?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Wow.
I'd have plans to retire early, so I don't actually plan to stay in a 9 to 5. But again, because I have a strategy, I know my exit plan, and I know what number. Do you know what I mean? I've got it all set out. But again, it's all dependent on my situation. It's not going to be the same for everybody. But yeah, I don't really see myself working. When I say working, I mean like actively getting up and having to like go out and do something. I kind of want to be settled down and stuff by 40.
Okay.
Yeah, 40.
So do you believe that we should all prepare for retirement, or is that just a you thing?
Do I believe that we should all prepare for retirement? Yeah, unless you've in a very unfortunate situation where you've only got a certain amount of time to live, then I would say have fun, because you ain't going to take that money with you. But if it's a thing where, you know, I think we should prepare for retirement, but again, we shouldn't miss out on important things or things we love doing, because ultimately, like, life is short. You have to enjoy life now. And so, like, for example, I love traveling, so I prioritize traveling. I'd much rather travel rather than go out and party every other weekend and spend probably the same money, if not more, because it's easy. Like, how much is a table now in London? Do you know what I mean? So you can blow like 5, 10K on a table, easy. Exactly, easy. I'd rather go on a trip with that. So it's about making those sacrifices and finding out what you like and what you don't really care about missing out on.
Do you feel like it's ever too late to invest in something?
No. A lot of people will be like, oh, you missed the boom or whatever. I feel like I don't want to be a part of the boom, because the boom is like hype. So when you follow hype, it's like, this is how I feel like a lot of people get swayed. So a lot of people actually don't have a clue about what they're doing, but because it's like, oh yeah, everybody's doing it, I'm gonna do it. You're following trends. And actually I feel like, you know, the people that do the best are the people that stick to a plan no matter what the market's doing. So for example, I'm huge on like what is the name? Basically, it's where you invest the same amount every single month, but there's a certain name for it. It is a technical name. It's dollar cost averaging. That's what it is.
And you invest every month.
So you invest it doesn't matter what's going on in the market, whether it's up, down, left, right, it doesn't matter. You invest the same amount every month consistently over a period of time, because what you're basically doing is, because you've got time in the market, right? These little downfalls don't matter, because your risk will be mitigated because you're in it for the long term. So if you have time in the market, that's better than trying to time the market, trying to get it at its peak. And you know, because nobody can foresee the future. We can all make speculations and predictions,
but
and
no one really knows.
No one knows. So I say invest the same amount every single month, and that's a much easier approach to trying to guess the market and, you know, outbeat this stock or that mutual fund. And yeah.
So is there not an age limit on these things? Like, do you feel like investing when you're like 65, do you think there's a point? Or
yeah, you still got life to live, why not?
Yeah,
my mum invests, and she's not 65, but she's 60. She's in the 60s club. Don't want to say too much on her age, but yeah. So yeah, I don't think there's ever a cut-off point for like investing. No, this is what I'm saying. Investing is a lifestyle. It's not something you do because it's a for now thing, because it's trendy. Like, that's not how wealth is built. If you really want to build like true wealth, it honestly becomes like a lifestyle. Like, when you start investing, right, your mindset changes, your body changes. You want to do things that are productive. You don't have interest in certain things because you know it doesn't align with your goals and the goal you're ultimately trying to reach. Like, if you do a study, like, there's been so many studies on like wealthy people, their habits, their interests, things that they do and spend their time on, and they all have quite similar patterns. A lot of wealthy people wake up early. Like, that's one big thing.
a lot of people say like 5 a.m, 6 a.m.
5 a.m. club. There's that book. I love that book. But you got the 5 a.m. club. So a lot of people have this thing about waking up early, and there's something about doing things in the morning and getting it done early. Whether it's like, you know, you have less distractions. So if you wake up at like 5 a.m, most people aren't going to be up at 5 a.m. You could be super productive. You've got limited distractions and get the work done. And by the time everybody's up at 9, when they're going to work, your day's done.
Yeah.
And you can go off and do whatever you want to and enjoy and have that time. And that's what investing is ultimately about. It's like, I'm not trying to get as much money as possible. I don't honestly care about money. It's the time I want back. That's all I want. Time freedom to do whatever I want.
Yeah. So do you feel like young people have like plenty of time, or they should just start as young as possible?
I feel like you only have as much time as your money will allow you to. You can't have a lot of time. it's either this. So you can't really have time and money. You either have a lot of time and not that much money, or you have a lot of money and not that much time, because things are give and take. Eventually, hopefully, once you've built, a certain amount of wealth, it then becomes passive, but it takes a while before things actually become passive and you can just chill out and live off of your investments.
And are there any other investments or anything that we should know about? Like, what type of bank should we all have? Like, who should we bank with? Like, tell us. Give us the knowledge, really.
No recommendations on who you should bank with, because I'm not affiliated and I'd hate to make a recommendation and then...
It's dodgy.
Right. Or, there's something that they might change, because things are constantly changing. People are always doing things and removing things. So I don't have a certain bank that I would say, but I would say, like, I think everybody should have a high yield savings account, and in that high yield savings account should be your emergency fund. An emergency fund is like typically anywhere between like 3 to 6 months of living expenses just sitting there in case of an emergency. And when I say emergency, it's not like, oh, I need to get my hair done, I don't have money in my account, let me transfer it. That's not an emergency. An emergency is something like a tire's broken down or my boiler's broken down. You don't need to use credit or, have to take out a payday loan to do that, because you've got an emergency fund. So I think, 3 to 6 months in a high yield savings account. Obviously, your main bank account for day-to-day spending, and a little bit of cash on the side. And then an investment account, a brokerage account, for your more long-term stuff where, okay, maybe this is money that you're not going to touch for the next 5 to 10 years. It can build wealth, and then you go off of that. What other accounts? It might be different. Like, if there's a lot of accounts, I have a lot of mums, actually, single mums, on my page that tend to ask me about, like, oh, what account can I open for my child and stuff like that. And so children can invest, well, they can't invest themselves, but parents can invest on behalf of their children, right? And there's so many ways to kind of like set your children up for success. One of these ways is through like a junior ISA. So you can open a junior ISA for your child, and I think you can contribute, it's like $9,000, I believe, a year. And like, if you do that, you can set them up, and by the time they're 18, they're in a really good position, probably way ahead of their peers, right? Even if you can't max out the account, it's worth doing it because it's better than just leaving it in the bank. There's also a way for parents, so like, content creation is a huge thing now. We're all in 2024. There's so many baby models or baby influencers. Like, I'm on TikTok a lot, and there's so many kids I'm like, that kid is so funny. Like, there's certain kids I'm like, this kid is so funny. But there's things that you can do, and things that you can do to basically make them an employee. So like, it's very complex, and it would probably take a little bit of time to get into it, but like, there's tax benefits to that and write-offs to that, so it's worth looking into for like parents and anybody thinking about that.
Okay, sick. And how has your parents been impacted by your success and your friends and the people around you?
Do you know what? I don't really look at where I am now as success, because I feel like it's nowhere near where I want to be. But again, I don't want to diminish the work that I have done, because it has been hard. And I think I didn't actually realize that the influence I feel like until you go out and you get stopped by a few people and you're like, bro, like, me? Yeah, that is me. Like, I feel like that's when I realized that, okay, like, people know my face and stuff, but I could still be doing a lot more. So I think my parents have been very like fond of it. Again, they're easygoing. So like, they pretty much support anything I want to do. Not going to say right or wrong, but they allow me to make my own mistakes and learn from it. And yeah, I can have that autonomy.
Yeah, so like, have your parents learned anything from you, or has your intelligence in this area helped your friends and family? Because I would love to have someone telling me stuff in my ear on the phone, like, invest in this, do this, because who wouldn't want someone?
I think now my parents have probably become, like, a lot of parents are like this, probably like, oh, I've got years on you, I've got age on you, you can't tell me nothing about life, you ain't even lived life yet. And it's true, like, you ain't lived life yet, and there probably is a lot of life experience that they have over you. But because my parents are in their generation, and right now we're in my generation, it's kind of like, you have to give and take some things. So like, there's certain things that they might not understand fully. Like, the internet is cool, but when we start getting like into the nitty gritty bits of the internet, it's like, okay, now it's like you do need that assistance, and perhaps, you know, you can take a different approach. Before, like, to invest before was really difficult. It was like basically only for wealthy people, because you had to have like a certain amount. Whereas now you can invest with like as little as £1. So of course that opens a lot of doors for way more people than it did, say, if you had to have like 20 or 50k minimum, because some investments do have a minimum on the amount you can put in. So I think, yeah, with that, obviously, they've made like investments. Like, for example, my parents own their home, so they have been aware of this sort of stuff. But I feel like it's kind of like, in terms of when we start getting into like stocks and crypto is fairly new. But yeah, when we kind of get into things like that, I feel like, yeah, they are more like, okay, what's this about? What's that about? And we can have like that open conversation. And yeah, I think they're very, like I said, my parents are easygoing. I'm quite lucky to have parents like that. So yeah.
So what's next, Monique? What's your future plans?
There is something I have coming up next. I can't say though right now, but there is something that I do have coming up next. It's still in the pipeline, but hopefully we can, yeah, you guys will see, definitely. So if you keep up with me, you'll see. But there is something I have next. I feel like it's gonna completely do a 360 on my life. So yeah, you have to stay tuned for that.
So what is something that you wish you knew about finance and all of this whole industry sooner?
Wealth is built over time. Like, give yourself time, allow yourself time. Like, a lot of people, I feel like, especially again, because of the way Gen Z are and the opportunities and the access to the internet, like we have, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on a lot of people to be successful by the time they hit 25. And it's like, you've only just really started real life. Like, you're only 25, do you know what I mean? But I feel like, again, it comes from things that we see on social media, or maybe things that people have, and we're comparing ourselves, or this person has that, I should have that, or this person's doing this and I should be doing this. I think take your time with it. Like, slow and steady always wins the race. So you're on your own path, you're on your own game, like you're in competition with nobody but yourself. And I think just sticking to having a strategy and sticking to it and being consistent will always prevail over like just trying to, you know, find the next best thing or whatever. And like, if you do the hard work, like I said, it will speak for itself.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Monique. Honestly, it's been great chatting with you, and you've told us so much. Even there's loads of things I'm gonna go and research myself now. So thank you.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
That was the Quitters Never Win show. I'm Mina Simone, and please like, comment, subscribe, and tell us who you want to see next.